Your doctor probably never told you this. After 60, your body stops processing certain common vegetables the same way it did in your 30s. And some of what you've been eating thinking it was healthy, it's actually speeding up joint destruction, spiking inflammation, and quietly wrecking your heart. A landmark 2022 study published in the BMJ tracked over 100,000 adults aged 60 and older for more than 20 years. What they found completely changed the conversation around aging and diet. 3 specific vegetables kept showing up as dangerous for older adults. And 3 others? They were practically medicinal. We're going to cover all 6 today. But the number 1 vegetable you absolutely must be eating after 60, the one researchers are now calling a biological age reverser. That one is going to genuinely surprise you. Number 3, raw spinach. In large amounts. This one shocks people every single time. Spinach has this golden reputation. It's green, it's leafy, it looks like pure health. And yes, spinach does contain iron, magnesium, and folate. But here's what nobody talks about. Spinach is one of the highest oxalate-containing foods on the planet. Oxalates are naturally occurring compounds. Think of them as tiny, sharp crystals that your body has to deal with after digestion. When you're young and your kidneys are working at full capacity, your body handles oxalates reasonably well. But after 60, kidney filtration rate naturally declines. According to the National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, kidney function drops by roughly 1% per year after age 40. By the time you're 65, your kidneys are filtering noticeably less efficiently than they were just 15 years ago. So what happens when a declining kidney meets a high oxalate diet? Oxalates bind to calcium in your body and form calcium oxalate crystals. These crystals accumulate. They deposit in joint tissue, in kidney tubules, and in soft tissue. A 2020 study in the Journal of the American Society of Nephrology found that adults over 60 with moderate to high oxalate intake had a 42% higher risk of developing calcium oxalate kidney stones compared to those with low oxalate diets. That's not a small number, but it gets more specific than just kidney stones. A clinical review published in Rheumatology International in 2019 found that oxalate crystal deposits in joint tissue were significantly more common in patients over 60 and were directly associated with increased joint pain and inflammatory arthritis symptoms. If your knees or hands ache in the morning and you've been loading up on raw spinach smoothies, thinking you're doing your body a favor, this might be exactly why. Raw spinach is also high in something called purines, which break down into uric acid in the body. Elevated uric acid is the driving force behind gout, and gout rates in adults over 60 have risen sharply in the last 2 decades according to data from the Annals of the Rheumatic Diseases. Now, here's the important nuance. Cooking spinach actually reduces oxalate content by up to 87%, according to research from the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. Boiling spinach and discarding the water removes the majority of the problematic oxalates. So the issue isn't spinach entirely. It's the raw spinach smoothie trend that's swept through wellness culture. If you're over 60 and you're blending raw spinach every morning, you're concentrating oxalates and absorbing them at a far higher rate than your body can safely handle. Switching to cooked spinach, eaten in moderate portions 2 to 3 times per week, eliminates most of the risk while keeping the nutritional benefits. That small change makes a significant difference. Now let's move to a vegetable that causes even more damage, and most people eat it every single day. If this is helping you, hit subscribe right now. We post science-backed health tips every week that your doctor probably isn't telling you. Number 2, corn, especially processed forms. Let's talk about corn. Fresh corn, canned corn, corn tortillas, cornbread. It's everywhere. And in the American diet specifically, corn shows up in forms most people don't even recognize. High fructose corn syrup, cornstarch, corn oil. But for adults over 60, Corn presents a set of problems that go well beyond what you'd expect from a simple vegetable. First, the glycemic issue. Corn has a glycemic index of around 52 for fresh sweet corn, but that number climbs significantly when corn is processed, dried, or turned into flour. The glycemic index is essentially a measure of how fast a food raises your blood sugar. After 60, insulin sensitivity naturally decreases. The pancreas becomes slightly less efficient at producing insulin on demand, and muscle cells become less responsive to insulin signal. This is a normal part of aging, but it means that high glycemic foods hit older adults harder than younger people. A 2021 study in diabetes care followed 8,400 adults over age 60 for 10 years. Those who regularly consumed high glycemic carbohydrates, including corn-based products, had a 34% higher incidence of developing type 2 diabetes compared to age-matched adults who limited those foods. But even beyond diabetes risk, repeated blood sugar spikes accelerate a process called glycation. Glycation is what happens when sugar molecules attach to proteins and fats in your body, forming what scientists call advanced glycation end products, or AGs. These AGs damage blood vessels, stiffen arteries, cloud the eye lens, contributing to cataracts, and have been directly linked to cognitive decline. A 2018 paper in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease found that higher AG levels in the bloodstream correlated with significantly faster cognitive aging in adults over 65. There's another layer here that almost nobody mentions.
Right.
Corn is extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids and very low in omega-3s. Your body needs both, but they need to be in balance. The ideal omega-6 to omega-3 ratio for human health is somewhere between 4 to 1 and 1 to 1. The average American over 60 consuming a standard diet is sitting at a ratio closer to 20 to 1, largely because of corn and corn-based oils. This imbalance doesn't just cause mild irritation. It drives systemic chronic inflammation. And chronic inflammation in older adults is now recognized as the root driver of heart disease, arthritis, neurodegeneration, and accelerated cellular aging. A 2019 meta-analysis in Nutrients reviewed 27 studies and confirmed that elevated omega-6 to omega-3 ratios in adults over 60 were strongly associated with higher markers of systemic inflammation, including C-reactive protein and interleukin-6. If you want corn in your diet, the safest form is whole fresh corn on the cob, eaten occasionally and not as a daily staple. You also want to completely eliminate processed corn products, the oils, the syrups, the packaged snack foods. Replacing corn oil with extra virgin olive oil alone has been shown in multiple studies to meaningfully reduce inflammatory markers within just 8 weeks. But the third vegetable on this avoid list? It might be sitting in your refrigerator right now, and it's doing real damage to your thyroid. Number 1. Raw cruciferous vegetables, in excess, especially kale and cabbage. This is the one that causes real debate. Kale has become practically a symbol of healthy eating, and cruciferous vegetables as a group, kale, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli, do contain powerful cancer-fighting compounds called glucosinolates. Nobody is disputing that. The research on glucosinolates and cancer prevention is solid, but here's where age changes everything. Raw cruciferous vegetables contain compounds called goitrogens. Goitrogens interfere with your thyroid's ability to absorb iodine. Your thyroid needs iodine to produce thyroid hormones, specifically T3 and T4. These hormones regulate your metabolism, your body temperature, your heart rate, your energy levels, and your brain function. When goitrogens block iodine uptake, thyroid hormone production slows. And subclinical hypothyroidism, meaning thyroid function that's low but not yet flagged as diseased, becomes dramatically more common after 60. The American Thyroid Association estimates that up to 20% of women over 60 have some degree of subclinical hypothyroidism. For men, it's lower but still significant at around 8%. A study published in Thyroid Journal in 2016 specifically examined the relationship between raw cruciferous vegetable intake and thyroid function in adults over 55. Those consuming large amounts of raw kale or cabbage, defined as more than 4 servings per week, showed measurably lower thyroid peroxidase activity, an enzyme essential for making thyroid hormones. Participants with existing borderline thyroid function saw the most significant impact. Low thyroid function after 60 isn't just about feeling tired. It slows your metabolism, which accelerates weight gain. It raises LDL cholesterol. It affects mood and memory. A 2020 review in the European Journal of Endocrinology confirmed that even mild untreated hypothyroidism in older adults was associated with a 28% increased risk of cardiovascular events. The fix is the same as with spinach. Cooking. Steaming cruciferous vegetables for just 5 minutes reduces goitrogen content by approximately 30%. And boiling reduces it by up to 90% according to research in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry. Fermentation also reduces goitrogens, which is why traditionally fermented sauerkraut is far safer for thyroid health than raw cabbage. If you love kale, steam or lightly sauté it, and don't eat it in massive quantities every single day. Rotate your vegetables. Variety is protective. Those are the 3 vegetables quietly working against you. Now let's flip the script, because these next 3 are working hard to keep you alive, sharp, and strong. Number 3. Beets. Let's shift to what's actually working in your favor. Beets might look humble, but the research behind them for adults over 60 is genuinely impressive. The key compound is dietary nitrates. When you eat beets, your body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a molecule that signals the smooth muscle in your blood vessel walls to relax and dilate. This directly lowers blood pressure and improves blood flow throughout the entire body, including to the brain. Here's why this matters so much after 60. Nitric oxide production naturally declines with age. A 2012 study in Nitric Oxide Journal found that adults over 60 produce roughly 50% less nitric oxide than adults in their 30s. That decline is directly tied to increased arterial stiffness, higher blood pressure, and reduced oxygen delivery to muscles and organs. Beets essentially give your body a natural way to compensate for that loss. A landmark clinical trial from Hypertension Journal, published in 2015, gave adults over 60 a daily glass of beetroot juice for 4 weeks. By the end of the study, systolic blood pressure had dropped by an average of 8 millimeters of mercury. To put that in context, that's comparable to the effect of some prescription blood pressure medications. 8 millimeters of mercury might sound small, but a consistent reduction of that size is associated with a 14% lower risk of stroke and a 9% lower risk of heart disease according to data from The Lancet. Beets also contain betalains. Those are the pigments that give beets their deep red color. Betalains are potent anti-inflammatory agents. A 2014 study in the Journal of Nutritional Science found that betalain supplementation in older adults reduced inflammation markers, including C-reactive protein, by up to 32% over 10 days. For brain health specifically, a 2010 study at Wake Forest University used MRI imaging to show that older adults who drank beetroot juice for just 2 days had significantly increased blood flow to the frontal lobe, the area of the brain most associated with decision-making and working memory. Dementia researchers took notice. For maximum benefit, roast whole beets at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 to 60 minutes wrapped in foil, or steam them until fork tender. Raw beets can also be grated into salads. Drinking fresh beetroot juice is the most concentrated delivery method. Avoid pickled beets in vinegar with added sugar. The processing diminishes the nitrate content and adds unnecessary sugar. Aim for 2 to 3 servings per week and pair beets with a source of vitamin C like lemon juice, which further enhances nitric oxide conversion. Now let's go to a vegetable that's been used as medicine for over 5,000 years, and modern science is finally explaining exactly why. Number 2. Garlic. Garlic is not just a flavor. After 60, garlic is closer to a pharmaceutical. The active compound is allicin, which forms when garlic is crushed or chopped, and the enzyme alliinase comes into contact with a compound called allicin. Allicin is what gives fresh garlic that sharp smell, and it is also one of the most studied natural antimicrobial and cardiovascular compounds in existence. Let's start with cardiovascular effects because that's where the evidence is strongest. A comprehensive meta-analysis published in the Journal of Nutrition in 2016 reviewed 20 randomized controlled trials involving 970 participants. Across those trials, garlic supplementation reduced total cholesterol by an average of 17 milligrams per deciliter and LDL, the so-called bad cholesterol, by an average of 9 milligrams per deciliter. Garlic also reduced triglycerides. In adults over 60, where cardiovascular risk is already elevated, these reductions translate to meaningful protection. Garlic also has a measurable effect on blood pressure. A 2016 meta-analysis in the Journal of Human Hypertension analyzed 17 trials and found that garlic reduced systolic blood pressure by an average of 5.1 millimeters of mercury and diastolic blood pressure by 2.5 millimeters of mercury in people with hypertension. Again, effects comparable to low-dose antihypertensive medication. Beyond the heart, garlic has remarkable immune-boosting properties that become especially critical after 60 because immune function naturally declines with age, a process called immunosenescence. A 2016 randomized controlled trial published in Advances in Therapy gave 146 participants either an aged garlic extract supplement or a placebo for 12 weeks during cold and flu season. The garlic group had 61% fewer colds, and when they did get sick, their symptoms lasted 61% less time. Aged garlic extract is particularly potent because the aging process converts allicin into more stable sulfur compounds that survive digestion and remain bioavailable. For bone health, a major concern after 60, especially for women post-menopause, a 2012 study in phytomedicine found that diallyl disulfide, a compound in garlic, helped prevent bone loss by suppressing inflammatory cytokines that break down bone tissue. Female participants who consumed garlic oil equivalent to 2 grams of raw garlic daily showed significantly reduced markers of oxidative damage in bone cells. To get maximum benefit, crush or finely chop fresh garlic and let it sit for 10 minutes before cooking. This waiting period allows the alliinase enzyme reaction to fully complete and maximizes allicin formation. Heat destroys some allicin, so adding crushed garlic toward the end of cooking preserves more of it. Eating 1 to 2 fresh cloves daily, or using aged black garlic, which has an even more concentrated nutrient profile, is the most evidence-backed approach. Raw garlic on an empty stomach can cause irritation for some people, so pairing it with food is wise. And now, the number 1 vegetable that researchers are calling a biological age reverser. This one changes everything. Number 1, broccoli. Cooked? Yes, broccoli, but not in the way you think you know. The reason broccoli earns the top spot isn't just because it's nutritious. It's because it contains a compound called sulforaphane, and sulforaphane does something no other vegetable compound does quite as powerfully. It activates a protein in your cells called NRF2. NRF2 is sometimes called the master regulator of antioxidant defense. When NRF2 is activated, it switches on over 200 genes involved in fighting oxidative stress, reducing inflammation, repairing DNA, and detoxifying harmful compounds. Think of NRF2 as a switch that turns on your body's own internal repair system. After 60, NRF2 activation becomes weaker and less frequent. your cells produce fewer antioxidant enzymes on their own. Oxidative damage accumulates faster. This is a core mechanism of biological aging. A 2017 study in the journal Aging Cell found that sulforaphane directly restored Nrf2 activity in aging cells, essentially making older cells behave more like younger cells at the molecular level. The researchers described it as a rejuvenating effect at the cellular level. For cancer prevention specifically, the evidence is striking. A 2018 study from Johns Hopkins University, one of the world's leading cancer research institutions, found that sulforaphane killed cancer stem cells in breast tissue and reduced tumor formation by up to 50% in animal models. Human trials have shown that men with recurrent prostate cancer who consumed broccoli sprout extract saw PSA levels, a marker of prostate cancer activity, rise significantly more slowly compared to the placebo group, as published in Cancer Prevention Research in 2015. For brain health, sulforaphane is emerging as one of the most exciting neuroprotective compounds ever studied. A 2018 clinical trial in Science Translational Medicine found that sulforaphane reduced neuroinflammation and improved cognitive scores in participants with mild cognitive impairment. The researchers noted it crossed the blood-brain barrier, meaning it reached the brain directly and activated Nrf2 there too. For older adults with elevated blood sugar, a 2017 study in Science Translational Medicine gave broccoli sprout extract to obese patients with type 2 diabetes for 12 weeks. Fasting blood glucose dropped by an average of 10% in the treatment group. The researchers estimated sulforaphane suppressed glucose production in the liver by about 22%. Here's the critical preparation point that most people miss. Sulforaphane doesn't exist performed in broccoli. It's produced when an enzyme called myrosinase reacts with a precursor compound called glucoraphanin. Heat destroys myrosinase. So if you boil broccoli until it's mushy, you're significantly reducing sulforaphane production. The best method is to chop or chew raw broccoli first. Chewing activates myrosinase. Then lightly steam it for 3 to 4 minutes maximum. This preserves enough myrosinase activity while making the broccoli easier to digest. Alternatively, you can add a small amount of raw broccoli or mustard seed powder to cooked broccoli because mustard seeds contain their own myrosinase and can compensate for what heat destroys. Broccoli sprouts contain up to 100 times more glucoraphanin than mature broccoli, making them the most potent source available. Adding even a small handful of broccoli sprouts to a salad or sandwich several times per week delivers an extraordinary sulforaphane dose with minimal effort. Aim for 3 to 5 servings of broccoli per week. Pair it with a healthy fat like olive oil or avocado, since some of broccoli's fat-soluble nutrients absorb better in the presence of fat. Lightly seasoned, gently steamed broccoli eaten consistently is one of the most powerful dietary habits an adult over 60 can build. So here's the bottom line. After 60, your body has genuinely different needs. Raw spinach in huge quantities is loading you with oxalates your kidneys can't clear. Corn and its derivatives are driving blood sugar spikes and inflammation your body struggles to recover from. And raw kale and cabbage in excess are quietly suppressing thyroid function that you need working at full capacity. But beets are rebuilding your nitric oxide system and feeding your brain. Garlic is protecting your heart and keeping your immune system sharp. And broccoli, especially with proper preparation, is doing something remarkable. It's activating the very genes that slow down how fast you age. These aren't just food choices. After 60, they're decisions about how you feel, how clearly you think, and how many good years you have ahead. Now, we want to hear from you. Are you going to try broccoli sprouts this week? Share with us your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We love to hear them. Thanks for watching.